Peace. Good morning. How you doing? It's Mr. R2 here at Consistency is Currency. I am 3 minutes late. Today's conversation is hard. It was very difficult. Like designing and getting and fleshing out and listening to different uh speakers and videos and creating and fleshing out and and understanding and wording. It was hard. This is going to be difficult for me uh, to do, but it's going to be okay. I'm not one to run away from difficulties or any of that stuff. That's not how I'm built. Um, yeah. All right. So, like always, I thank you. I appreciate you for being here. I am off centered. I feel like my hat is crooked and everything all at the same time. Um, but nah, again, I thank you for being here at Consistency is Currency. Like I always say, your morning podcast of choice. Um, you will always get gratitude here first thing in the morning. You're always going to get appreciation here first thing in the morning. Um, yeah, that's it. You're going to get it. Thank you. So let's go ahead and have today's conversation. Like always, what we do on Fridays is we show our appreciation to our international listeners and those who listen on the podcast distribution sites, whether it's iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Amazon Music, all of those digital MP3 distribution spaces out there. We're going to show our appreciation to you like always, and we're going to say thank you. So let's go ahead and pull the screen up and show where we're at and just say thank you like always. All right. So, of course, everybody in the US that's listening at a strong 87%. But again, thank you. India, thank you. Nigeria, we say thank you for listening. Canada, thank you. Germany, Italy, South Africa, thank you. Puerto Rico, Kenya, United Kingdom, thank you for listening. South Korea, Indonesia, Singapore, France, Netherlands, Pakistan, Australia, Russia, thank you. United Arab Emirates, thank you. Uganda, thank you. Algeria, Saudi Arabia, Nepal, Burundi, Morocco, thank you. Uh, New Zealand, Ireland, Turkey, Slovenia, Namibia, Dominican Republic in the DR. We say thank you for listening. Austria, thank you for listening. U.S. Virgin Islands, Thailand, Ethiopia, Malaysia, thank you. Belgium, thank you. Philippines, Latvia, Denmark, Belize, Uzbekistan, thank you. Georgia, thank you. Okay. Hong Kong, that's a new one. Thank you for listening. Zambia is a new one. Thank you for listening. Benin, that's a new one. Thank you for listening. And here is the podcast distribution. We're very strong uh, listening platform on Apple Podcasts. Thank you. So if you got an iPhone or you have your MacBook, whatever it is, all you got to do is go into the podcast and type in consistency is currency, and you can listen to all of the podcasts in the past on your Apple device, web browser. Thank you. Anchor, Google Podcasts, we say we appreciate you. Spotify, we appreciate you as well. So, gender wise, this week we had 83% were males, 16% were females. Appreciate you, brothers out there, for listening. And now let's look at the age groups for this week. It was a young group listening this week, 18 to 22. 67% of listeners this week, 18 to 22, 23 to 27. Thank you. 24. I'm sorry, 28 to 34. Um, we say thank you. We appreciate you for listening as well. Peace. Good morning, brother Ronnie. Appreciate you, Miss Nicola, for listening as well. So let's go ahead and switch this out and put up what we're going to be talking about. Today's a hard subject today. That's not what I want to see. That's what I want to see. All right, here we go. Peace. Good morning, Miss Myrick. All right, so here's the caption. I need to put the caption up as we close out this Friday. And again, you can answer this as transparent as possible. Have you ever settled in an old space that you know you need to move from? That's a question. Like, have you ever settled in a old space, in old spaces that you know you need to move from? I'm just gonna throw it out there. Y'all can answer how you answer it. So let's go ahead and jump in this conversation. Like always, if you know the platform, you're gonna get definition of words, and you're gonna get the inversion of the definitions, either gonna be red over white or white over red. So y'all ready? All right, bet. Let's jump. Then we're going to go into the deep dive. We're going to jump deeper in the deep dive. All right, we only got two definitions today because this took me a very long time to create. This was one of the most difficult ones that I've done to me uh, thus far. Just, yeah, here we go. All right, so settling. Now, we know we're talking about settling in a new space. In a new space, that we're talking about. No, we're not talking about you got a new apartment or you got a new car or you moved to, you know, Austin or Pflugerville or Dallas or whatever it is. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about like where is that space that you're in psychologically, emotionally, um, spiritually, whatever it is, like settling in the space. But a lot of times we don't settle in spaces because we're still holding on to old spaces that we know that we need or possibly had needed to move away from. And we're holding on to that space for whatever reason. All right, bet. So the first definition of settling, it says begin to feel comfortable or established in a new situation. This just definition. Being being to feel uh, being to feel comfortable or established in a new situation. The inversion that I want you to pay attention to is white over red. Established in a new situation. So, in order for you to get out of a particular place that you've settled in, you have to create or establish a new situation. A new situation, a new different train of thought, a new way of comprehension in order for you to see what it is that you're supposed to see. You have to establish that new situation before you can acknowledge that the direction that you're going, like in your goal settings, direction that you're going with what you're creating, it has to change in that point. And the other definition that I want you to look at in settling, it says silence. Then, of course, it says someone considered a nuisance or by some means. And the reason why I have extracted this definition in the inversion is red over white, silenced by some means. This is those voices that you have in your head. It becomes very unsettling. And because it becomes unsettling, is because we begin to listen to those doubting conversations that we had with ourselves. And when we listen to those doubt when we listen to the doubt and the doubting conversations that we have with us, that's when we find ourselves staying in those moments and not maturing and growing from those moments and establishing and achieving new goals because we're still listening to those adolescent conversations that you can't make it or the adolescent conversations that you know you have grown away from, but yet you still find yourself hearing those same conversations inside of your head, and it beats you up every time that you know that you should have moved away from those conversations because you feel you have grown away from it, but you still haven't silenced it. You still hear it. But even when you do hear it, what do you say to you when you hear those self-sabotaging conversations? I mean, it's bad that you may hear it from somebody else, but what do you say to you when you tell you? Like, what do you say to you when you hear it? It's already enough that somebody else may be or may have possibly tried to sabotage your your growth, or to say, or to talk down on your process of growth or your process of development. But why should you be the one that is sabotaging you? Settling in a space, like getting out of your own way, like establishing new boundaries. Like when you think about this, what automatically kicks in for you? Like, what is that conversation that you automatically begin to have from you? Because it begins the process of silencing it by some means, knowing by some means. I'm gonna tell you what I see when I see by some means. That means that it's there. Right? It's there. You've had it, you hear it, you say it. But now, by some means, I'm going to acknowledge that sometimes I do have some self-sabotaging moments. But when I hear those self-sabotaging conversations, I can acknowledge it and say that I it existed in my world. But now what I do about it is up to me. Now settling in a space. So as we prepare and get to head down in this deep dive, we have to acknowledge that when we find ourselves settling in the spaces, we have to ensure that we have to develop a healthy balance. Like we have to find that much needed and healthy balance. Because for me, there are elements of ourselves that create a positive and a productive experience. We have to create it because those elements that create that positive and productive experience that drives us to change, we have to find ourselves in a new space to settle in. Because if I'm still thinking like I did when I was 21, I don't have to settle for those same outcomes because I should have matured enough to know what wrong looks like. And I should have matured enough to know that that is not a productive way of doing things. Case in point, I'll throw this out there and then I'm gonna let it go. Like for those that may have seen the John Morant situation that he has where he was on Instagram flashing a gun and stuff like that, like you still settled for your old 21-year-old ways. Like, yeah, you 23, but cat, you make so much money, but you still settling for those old ways. Now you have a possibility of losing all of it because you haven't driven yourself into creating a new space for you. You're still settling for the old space. Like that old space that's in the attic of your mind, you haven't moved or removed yourself from those old conversations. Some of you probably need to remove your old friends that's in those old spaces that you find yourself in. All right, I'm gonna leave that alone. But for real, I mean, that's that's old spaces. And I pray he understands those old spaces he need to move away from if he's ever going to move in a direction that's going to be productive, not just for him, but productive for the people that he's going to affect based off of the decisions that he made. Now let's go in a different direction because we must be moving with a direction of intent, right? When you move in a direction of direct intentions and you establish realistic expectations and you begin to embrace accountability, like think about it from this perspective. Embracing accountability really takes us into an area of responsibility. And it tells us that we don't have to take on things that don't belong to us. And when we know that we don't have to take on things that don't belong to us, we have to be okay with our actions and the decisions of the outcome of no longer taking on someone else's responsibilities or no longer taking on settling in old spaces. Because what that does, it really begins to promote levels of responsibility that increases our own self-awareness, and it also improves our performance because it's going to facilitate a much higher level of personal development and personal growth. And when we seek and strive for that new level in those new spaces, is going to enhance our relationships, not just the relationships between two individuals, but even a relationship between ourselves. Because loving you more is not settling in a space. Loving you more is acknowledging the space that you're in. And when we begin to design a realistic expectation and acknowledge that settling into a new space is going to take time and patience. Because there's a level of accountability that has to take place. Like, I am in this space because I did this, or I am in this space because I didn't do this. There's an accountability factor there, because that patience really involves understanding that most likely there's going to be challenges, right? There's going to be challenges. There's going to be difficulties along the way, but also knowing that these obstacles can be overcome by changing our determination factor and persevering on, even when it gets hard. If I push through it, the other side of my push through is going to be the development of what's new for me. But I have to push through it. Like I said yesterday, like, on the other side of the wall will only be achieved by those who are willing and committed to get themselves to the other side of the wall. And we need to really establish like realistic expectations. Because by having realistic expectations, it allows us to really avoid disappointment and frustration that can lead us to focus on making the most of our new surroundings. Because we have learned that we don't have to settle in spaces that we know is not going to be beneficial to the future you. Settling in spaces that we know that we don't have to be in anymore is going to make a much more resilient individual. Why? Because as we create new things, the things that we let go of, we're going to be okay with releasing those things. And when we move with those true intentions, it's going to clearly define our new purpose, and our goal in mind will help us make decisions that align with our true goals and aspirations. It's really going to lead into a much more focused and fulfilling experience as we change where we go, change what we do, change what we say, change when we say it, change how we respond, change how we react, change our language. All of those things affect us. But when you design the tools today, it's going to allow you to use those tools that you design for today, tomorrow. And I'm going to say that again. What we design today, the tools is going to be used for tomorrow. Meaning, the conversations that you have with yourself today is going to be the beneficial conversation that is going to help you walk away from the things that you know that you don't need to be in tomorrow. All right. Man, I appreciate you for being here in this shared space. And if we're ever going to create new spaces for us, we have to acknowledge the spaces that we're in. Like for me, I know probably I need to do a little bit more self-care and because I pour out so much into a lot of other things and a lot of other communities and stuff like that I don't pour back into myself. That's a new space that I have to acknowledge, but I have also have to acknowledge that it exists. All right, I'm gonna leave that alone. All right, but nah, I definitely appreciate you for being here at Consistency is Currency. Today is Friday. Find you something to do that is going to be beneficial for you, beneficial for the community of people that you surround yourself with. All of y'all might need to find a new space. I don't know. And when you find that space, know why it's designed and know who's on your left and know who's on your right. Y'all be blessed. Peace.